I want to introduce you to Cori Kennedy.
Hi, everyone.
So I told you guys yesterday, so I reached out to Cori on X back when Candace did her episode about Victor Marx because that was so crazy. I had hearing the things about Corby. I was really interested to know more. I didn't know about Cori. It didn't click with me, the names that Candace was throwing out there. So I just happened to be on X and I saw Cori somehow, and I looked at her posts and then saw her report about Victor Marx and her time with Corby, and I was like, wait, this is verbatim what Candace said. I think she probably was the original source of this, but even though I'm sure Candace said it, and I probably got stuck on something and didn't hear that part, but whatever. I reached out to Cori, and then Cori got back to me just this past Sunday and said a lot of things had changed. And so I was very interested in what had changed. I did not, after sending her the message that I did, I had not kept up on anything and looked at that because I just like really fresh eyes and really fresh ears when I go in to talk to somebody. So I didn't know all the stuff that had been posted. So she just went over that pretty much of what was on her social media, and we just decided to do this and talk about it more. Yeah, so welcome, Cori. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I very much appreciate you reaching out to me. And like I said, I hadn't really checked on X because there's so much spam in my inbox. A lot of times I don't even check my messages because it's just, I can't tell you how many times Elon Musk has supposedly messaged me or his mom. And so I just don't really check that. And so for whatever reason it was the other day, I checked in my messages, and that whole period of time where Candace had been interviewing Corby and really kind of, brought Victor Marx into the conversation. That same period of time where you had reached out, several people had reached out and were saying, "Oh, I'd love to talk with you." And so then I felt really bad because I will talk to just about anybody who wants to talk about this, even if they adamantly disagree with me. And I saw your message there, and then when we connected, which was crazy because had we talked then, the conversation would look very different than the conversation we're going to have today. So
well, I'm glad that we got a hold of you. And have you been on any other podcasts or spoken to anybody in person, like live like this, or on camera?
I did not on camera. No, I did a ton of local radio here, conservative radio stations. I did a ton of that. No, to answer your question, I had to kind of run through that. No.
Okay. Well, I wanted to start with, we're coming up on the anniversary of Charlie Kirk's death. And so, it gets me thinking, and I want to ask you guys in the chat, where were you that day? Where were you September 10th at when that happened, 12:23 p.m.? But I'm going to show you where I was. I'm going to show you what I was doing. And I'm going to share my screen here because I've talked about it a few times. Let's see. And I'll share. Let me see if I can get my screen right for both of us here to do that. Okay, so this is what I was listening to at that very moment.
Yeah, so the breaking news is that Charlie Kirk was just shot in the neck. Charlie Kirk, who is a speaker, a right-wing speaker. He was just at a Utah event. I was actually just seeing this on my Twitter feed before my show because he does these live speaking events. This is horrifying, actually. He was at a university speaking. I'm actually very concerned. At Utah Valley University,
It was
he does a
streaming
lot
then.
of these live
Yep.
speaking events. And he was speaking, trying to, he does the live.
So Phoenix, it wasn't the event wasn't streaming. She was live streaming. I was watching her, and somebody, either the alert came through on her phone. What it looked like to me is that somebody had texted her, perhaps who was there or who was watching it themselves, like on the news or whatever.
Like debates with the students. And whatever your thoughts are on him, this is scary. That someone came out and he was shot in his neck, it looks like. And that is not okay, you guys. On a college campus, just a public speaker like that. This is very horrible. Zach is texting me. Oy, oy, oy. That's very, very scary.
Yeah. So that's where I was. I didn't know Charlie Kirk. I didn't know of Charlie Kirk. I didn't know the name Charlie Kirk. So it was that day that I saw this report, and I'm like, well, who's Charlie Kirk? And then I looked it up, and then all of us, then all the videos came out there right away, some of the graphic ones. And to me, just so you know, Cori, of where I was with it, to me, it looked like a political, I don't want to say political, an organized hit. To me, it looked like it was something very orchestrated and organized and professional, So I don't know that, why I had that thought, but that was what went through my mind at that time. And because I know a little bit about how things operate with politics, with these organized crime lords, right? I was like staying on the story because I felt like there was more there, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And for whatever reason, something in me switched, that I said, I can't let this happen anymore. We can't let this happen anymore, and we have to start paying attention and holding people accountable and not letting them get away with these things any longer. So that's where I was. I can see some of your guys' comments in the chat about where you were. Does that make you feel emotional? Like, honestly, at the time of hearing this, I wasn't emotional. I was just like, oh, another shooting, right? Because you kind of get that way. Oh, it's another shooting, and you don't necessarily take it, personally. But watching it after we've been almost a year in now, and all that we've done and all that we've tracked, I feel emotional today about it. I didn't actually plan. I didn't think I would feel emotional. I queued this up and I haven't watched it since. And but rewatching it here, it did make me emotional.
Same with me, actually. I didn't know what you were going to be posting, but when I was watching it here, it pulls at you, like it takes you back. I mean, I remember vividly everything that was happening in at that time, because we live in Evergreen, Colorado. So which was the 2 minutes prior to Charlie at the 12:23 at 12:21, our high school was under fire with a school shooter. And so, I mean, it was all happening at the same time, because my husband and I were sitting just over there at our little nook over there, and we were discussing something, and, you hear the first cop car, and, you don't think much of it, right? And then you hear the second cop car, and you're still on. And then you hear the third and the fourth and the fifth. And so we go out onto our deck, which overlooks this big valley of, we live on a cliff and you can oversee kind of a valley. And we're watching these cop cars just flying down the road at high rates of speed. And the thing is it wasn't just Jefferson County, which is the county we live in. It started getting Clear Creek County, Arapahoe County, Gilpin County, all the or like, oh my God, unfortunately, I immediately went to a school shooting, and my husband said, should I get my scanner out? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so I'm scrolling through social media, trying to find like what's happening. I'm looking on Nextdoor, I'm looking on the local Facebook pages, and everyone's kind of asking the same thing. What are going on with all the cop cars? And then as I'm scrolling, up pops Charlie Kirk has been shot in Utah. And it was like, so we've got cop cars flying by. Charlie Kirk has been shot. My husband was able to get his scanner listening to what was going on in Utah as well. I mean, it was insane. So we had a school shooting, and Charlie, like it was 12/21 and 12/23. These two things happened in such synchronicity of the other, which I do not actually believe they are in any way coordinated, but still it was, yeah.
And so where were you mentally, emotionally with regard to Charlie Kirk? What was your knowledge of him and your feelings about him?
So, I was, I think I am considered, I've heard the term, and I think it applies really well to me as a baby Christian. So things in my life had been very, since I would say there was a specific period of time, this November of 2019, something had been brought to me that basically just altered my entire belief of who I thought I was and the life I thought I had lived. And it's a very, very large thing. And so what happened is it really led me down a path of, who am I? What am I? And I could not help but believe that through this journey, God was helping me. And you're talking to someone who was like, I don't know. But I just kept feeling like this messaging was coming. And so I was starting to seek out, and just so to understand, my husband is a cradle Catholic. So he lives and believes wholeheartedly in God and Jesus. And over the years, we would have conversations. He never looked down on me. Admittedly, I think I looked down on him for like, how can you believe this? And, but he never let that get to him. And then, so this thing, like, I just can't explain it. This messaging was just coming, and it's just coming very loud to me. And I was like, I can't help but believe maybe this is God. And so I started to kind of search out information. I'm a very research oriented. And so upon this journey, I found Charlie Kirk, and he was just such a huge influence in that for me, because he presented it in such a way, for a logical person like me, it made sense. And from the apologetics, standpoint. And so I was really starting to follow him. I was starting to listen to him. I was starting to think, wow, how do I have someone like him in my life raising my kids? I think that could have been a really positive influence. And so it was really very, it was very, very deep. And then, but what was difficult about that is I hadn't really presented this to my husband yet. I hadn't really presented to him this journey, because I wasn't ready for him to say, told you so. I told you. I knew you'd get there. I wasn't ready for that yet. So and because I work all day on a computer, I can have information on one screen and work on another, and he's doing the same thing, and neither of us know what we're talking about or paying attention to or listening to. So I'm taking all of this in for a couple of years, and he doesn't even know about it. So when Charlie Kirk, what happened to Charlie Kirk happened, it hit me so hard. And my husband was like, kind of like you, who's Charlie Kirk? Because he didn't necessarily need that kind of spiritual leadership. He had his own moral compass on all of it. And so then this happens, and I become very weepy. I'm very sad. And so my husband is like, I'm
confused.
Yeah, because I'm not somebody who, I don't know how to say it that it's going to come across, but I'm not a silly woman, Yeah. I mean, this was completely out of the ordinary for him. And so so this all happened, and my husband was very much like, okay. And then I finally explained to him what I just explained to you. And he was, of course, very relieved that I finally found my way there, no matter what way I got there. And so so that was, there's a whole story behind it too, which leads us to Victor Marx, but that was how I came upon Charlie Kirk.
Okay. So you viewed him did you view him more as a spiritual leader or a political leader voice?
If I were to be honest with you, because I've always been very political, my background, I've held office. I've helped campaigns. I've always been very political. So I could see both and how they could work together. And Charlie Kirk, I think, did a great job of bringing the conservative movement in a light that represents what God wants, and so I would say both.
So did you consider yourself a conservative before Charlie? Like you weren't religious or spiritual, like in the sense of the Bible. So where does this conservatism come in on your part?
Okay, so no, I have not always been conservative. Well, okay, so my moral compass hasn't changed, but the Democrat Party's has, and so I spent most of my life, although when I held public office, I was actually a registered Republican, but that was because the city and county that I was going to represent was predominantly red, and I was smart enough to know that if I was going to hold office, I needed to hold the party, so I did change. And just so you know, I've learned that that's actually a rhino, but so I've learned that term. But here's the thing about it is I was a Democrat kind of during the Clinton era, right? And that actually has more conservative undertones than Democrats do today. Smaller government. I've never been a warmonger. I've never been a war hawk or anything like that. And so I've always been smaller government, less government influence in families. And so I've held these beliefs, but at the time they were Democrat values. In comes my husband, and he basically challenged me in my Democrat beliefs. And he challenged me in such a way, it was like a lot like Charlie Kirk, is that he presented things in such a way, it was like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So what happened is after my husband came into my life and I started to really adopt, I think, what would be considered more conservative ideas, I did what I do, and I started searching, and I found, and just so you know, the next person who came behind him was Ben Shapiro. And I was like, oh, I love how this guy debates. I love how he challenges things. I'm like, I love it. Then came Candace. And so there was just this kind of whole, and so I became then a conservative, but I was still in Colorado. You can have an affiliated party affiliation. So I was unaffiliated. I just abandoned all parties. and then Trump's first and second term, I voted for him. And then on September 11th of 2025, after Charlie was assassinated, I changed my party affiliation to Republican.
The very next day.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because it was like, I felt, to your point, what you said earlier, I felt that this can't go on. This has to stop. The only way it's going to stop is through, conservative values. And just so you know, I am, after everything that's happened in Colorado through the Republican Party, I don't want to be associated with them anymore. And
a lot of people don't.
And I, just so you know, I think it was probably 2 weekends ago, I changed my party affiliation back to unaffiliated.
Unaffiliated. Okay. So then enter Victor Marx. At what point in time and tell me what led you to specifically to Victor Marx and him as, like, I will say, more of a target for you because of his politics and because of your moral compass and your conservative beliefs?
Yes. So Charlie happens. So this is September 10th. And like I said, I, like a lot of people, felt this deep, deep grief for someone I'd never met. Right. And so it was, and again, I'm not a silly person. So this really goes outside of who I am. I'm sorry about that. The sun is coming through our big windows. It'll keep on going. I told my husband, I said, there's only one church in Denver that's even acknowledging Charlie Kirk. We're going to go to his vigil. So here's my husband who's like, okay, so now my wife is on a Christian journey and we're going to go to a church. Oh, and he's like, oh, okay. So we go to Brave Church in Englewood, and so there were some things that were sketchy right off the bat as they talk about it being a vigil for Charlie Kirk, and they need our name and phone number and whatnot because of security purposes. And that makes sense, right? Charlie Kirk has been assassinated. They want to make sure that this is a safe venue. So we have to enter our name and address.
Interesting.
Get a QR code. And so I've got my QR code. I put in one for me. I put in one for my husband. We get to the church and there's no one checking QR codes. There's no one checking names. They look through my purse. That was about it. And I'm like, okay, that's a little strange, right? Like that is, I thought we were doing security. Okay. But because, and this is where I think I'm really bothered by it is they were taking advantage of vulnerable, emotionally vulnerable people, because I would be somebody who would typically go, I think it's weird that I had to give my name and phone number and get a QR code. No one's checking security. But because I'm so emotionally distraught, I let it go. And we get in there and there's a sermon and whatnot. And on the stage comes Victor Marx. Did not know he was going to be there. Back up a few days. I did not know who Victor Marx was until I saw a picture of him, the infamous picture of him with his arms around Erica saying, getting the Princess Warrior, Princess Bride. I don't remember what it was. He said, home. And so I made a false assumption that Victor Marx was Erica Kirk's security detail. He was the head of security. And so Victor Marx comes on stage and I'm just like, oh, wow. And my husband said, who is this? And I said, it's Erica Kirk's it's Charlie Kirk's lead security. And he's like, oh, okay. So Victor Marx gets up there and he says, yeah, I was a mentor to Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And he then says at the end, and if the good Lord guides me to on October 1st, I will announce my run for governor.
He uses this vigil in Inglewood, Colorado.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. And so I'm having cognitive dissonance at this moment because I'm like, okay, that's tacky, but yay, you're the conservative movement Colorado needs. And so I was like, so cognitive dissonance is happening. I'm looking at this going, this is tacky. This is tacky. But yay, we need leadership here.
Yeah.
And so so I stand up. I mean, I do the whole standing ovation, the whole thing on we're leaving. And keep in mind, there's something else that happened that day at church is Pastor Jeff, I cannot pronounce his last name. He made a comment. He said, for those here who are ready to give their life to Christ, please stand up. And this is a packed church. This is a mega church. It's a packed church. And he says, please stand up if you're ready to give your life to Christ. And it was me and like 3 or 4 other people. And so apparently everyone else had already given their life to Christ. Like I said, I just am learning all this stuff, right? I'm like, okay, yes, I'm going to do this. I stand up, and it was a very moving moment for me. And when we got to the car, Kurt, my husband, said to me, he goes, I feel 40 pounds lighter by you standing up. And it really, like, so he had been carrying this burden for 10 years that his wife was, you know, floating around with no real spiritual guidance. And for him to say that he felt 40 pounds lighter, it really was a very moving moment for me. And so like I said, it was a lot of things. So I leave there and I start really promoting Victor Marx all over social media. We have a group text with, you know, like-minded friends. I send out, I'm like, Victor Marx, guys, he's coming up. You watch. He's going to be our next governor. I'm telling you, people. And they're like, oh, tell us more. So I tell them.
Okay. Pause for a second, because I want to. Okay, so I want to make sure that I get this. So, the vigil in Inglewood happened on what day?
September 14th.
September 14th, 4 days after Charlie died.
Mm-hmm.
They took your information. They gave you a QR code. They have all of your, you know, stuff that they gather. Mm-hmm. He announces 4 days later at this vigil that so they do this for security reasons, under the guise of security. Yes. They take your information, but there's no security when you enter.
Correct.
Clever.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he announces his run.
Mm-hmm. Soft launch. I call it a soft launch. Kind of.
Launch. Mm-hmm. And then you are emotional. You're vulnerable. Mm-hmm. You're in that moment, and then you come out of it. So let me say cognitive dissonance. I want to tell you guys, it means the mental discomfort you feel when your actions do not match your belief, or when you hold 2 opposing thoughts at the same time, or when you witness that being done. Okay, because we've all seen that. Okay. Right. So even though it felt odd and weird and you had these question marks, you're still vulnerable, you're emotional. Mm-hmm. And then you leave there and you decide, I'm going to help Victor. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
And what date did you start doing this?
Oh, like September 14th and a half.
Okay.
You know, afternoon.
So you're on your phone. You're on your phone after the vigil. And you're going for it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I am all over. I mean, I would be more than happy. It's in a lot of my writings because I have owned this. Is, you know, here's a picture of me. Okay, for instance, one of them was there's a picture of me standing on a local overlook bridge waving the Trump flag during the Trump election during 2024. And I said, here's me voting, you know, here's me rallying for Donald Trump. Here's me rallying for Donald Trump. You watch, because Colorado needs someone as great as Donald Trump. Here's Victor Marx. And so I used that picture to kind of launch, and it had just a jillion comments of people who are basically telling me I'm crazy. Colorado will never be conservative. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And so
even though you left Trump, you had like the day after decided you were leaving Trump, that you didn't have any hesitation in embracing Victor,
no,
assuming and knowing that he was probably MAGA.
Yes, I had assumed that he was, and at the time, so you understand, I was still MAGA. So Victor comes in, I'm still MAGA. Victor comes in, he's what we need, it's Colorado needs us. Oh my God. And so I am literally rallying. I mean, I'm sending out messages, and I've got people who trust my better judgment. Like I said, I may have said some contradictory things here, that I'm not really a silly woman or silly person. During the Victor Marx era, during the Charlie Kirk thing, I think I could easily be classified as maybe a silly woman, because I did become very, like, oh yeah. And so I was just, so friends are like, where can we donate money? And I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. So then October 1st, Victor Marx has his official announcement, whether he's gonna, it's kind of like a, maybe he will, maybe he won't. Sort of thing. Down at the Boot Barn in Colorado Springs. I'm dragging my husband down there, and my husband, like I said, his head is still my husband's head is still kind of spinning, like, who is this woman I am married to? Like, all of a sudden now this is what we're doing. So we go down there, Victor announces it. I'm like, yeah, I rally again. I'm getting people to donate money. It's just, oh yeah, it's crazy times.
Okay. So you're that you used your picture with Trump, and so then you had some people who believed in what you were doing. They believed you of sound mind and a person that they could trust and to follow. And so you took that, you had your own following, politically speaking, and so then you helped to bring that along. So now let's go from that. You're into Victor. This is September 14th. I'm writing this down.
To October 1st. October 1st, he announces.
Okay.
October 1st at the Boot Barn, he announces. He's going to make an announcement. Is it going to be he's governor? He's going to run for governor? Is it going to be he's maybe, I don't know, run for Senate? Or is it just going to be I'm going to go back to collecting money from unsuspecting Christians for my mission work? I don't know. It could have been anything, right? But we're down there. We drive an hour and a half across Colorado to go, because he's our guy. And so we're a couple weeks into it now, right? September 14th to October 1st. Well, then what happens not long after that is, I think the dust of Charlie had kind of started to settle for me, and I resumed non-silly thinking. And I was like, well, I'm really out there touting this guy. I should probably, get some background on him, right? Me thinking he's just a security guy for Charlie or Erica doesn't necessarily, and he says he's a mentor. So I just start with the most basic thing. And I start researching, was Victor Marx Charlie Kirk's mentor? Just the most basic thing. Or what I searched was who were Charlie Kirk's mentors, and Bill Montgomery, Frank Turek. There's another one, and I can't remember. But Victor Marx's name is nowhere to be found. So I even asked, Victor Marx Charlie Kirk's mentor? Can't find anything. So I just reach out to the campaign and I say, hey, I just can't find it anywhere. Can you please guide me to where I can find a link of Charlie saying Victor Marx was his mentor? And I get blocked. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and again, I think maybe there's something wrong with me. Maybe I don't know how, maybe after all these years, I don't know how to move around the internet. and
Mhm.
I've been blocked, but it really isn't blocked. It's got to be me. So I start reaching out to social media pages that are, Victor Marx for Colorado, Colorado's for Victor Marx. And I start posing in the forum, hey, I'm looking for proof that Victor Marx was Charlie Kirk's mentor. And I get blocked. I keep getting blocked. I can no longer get to these things. So now, to be honest with you, the only term I can think of is I'm pissed now.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, these are pretty simple questions.
Yeah.
And there's where the work started.
Wow. Okay. And what do you think that date was?
I'm going to say that this had to be early November. I want to think early November. So I'm still kind of dragging this out for the month of October. Like,
Yeah.
And then, so I want to see early November and
So
February. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So did you just wake up and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, huh? Or was there something that pricked that balloon to start the deflation of the excitement?
I think it was the fact of being blocked, because these are easy questions, right?
Okay.
Here's the link, or it's never been anything. It's never been, unfortunately, it was never recorded. It was just a conversation between Charlie and there's just no answer.
Yeah.
I don't quite remember what my early research was. I think my early I do. So The Dangerous Gentleman, his book, The Dangerous Gentleman, I wanted to just quickly find out what publishing house, thought his book was worthwhile to print. And it came out that it's a self-published book, and his wife owns the publishing company.
Oh,
His
okay.
wife owns and so what had started it is there was somebody who had kind of started to come out against Victor, and she had made a comment about the publishing company, and I corrected her.
Mhm.
And so that kind of began the correction of information out there about Victor Marx. It's something just as little as that was, the company that published his book was not this company out of, Taiwan. It was actually Eileen Marx out of Colorado Springs, Colorado. And so.
Did you read the book?
No. And I just can't. My husband ordered it, and it's sitting right over there because, it's one of those things. I've got a lot of books over there that are, kind of the, monumental things, like, something about Barack Obama's birth certificate.
Yeah.
Fauci. Oh, I've got all sorts of those kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you start digging into Victor at this point. Would you say that's like late November?
I would say so. I would say we're in late November.
And was it just you, or did you have a team who had been working with you to promote Victor?
No, it was just me.
Okay.
It was just me. And so now keep in mind, I also want to say how cognitive dissonance works is when I abandoned ship, I rejoined again. Just so you know, I abandoned ship once with him.
Okay.
To come back and go, I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at this all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Not trusting myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I joined back again. But my outward approach was not nearly as flamboyant as it was the first go round. And then what did it for, I know. Okay. So then the next big thing I uncovered was, and I couldn't believe that no one else had found this at this point, was that Victor's name was actually Vaughn, and I was like, okay, his name's not, his first name is actually Vaughn. So that was my very first thing I started on. And then I found Vaughn Kennedy, and then Vaughn Victor Kennedy. So once we started down that rabbit hole, and because I started to then research who he was, where he came from, and then through that, it was just a whole, like, just things were like flowing at a very high rate of, this guy is not who he says he is. It just kept coming.
And how were you getting all of your information aside from your own research? Was there people helping you, and how was that being documented or put out there in the public?
So I wrote a piece. I wrote my very first piece, which I look back on as just so kind of rookie. And it's I thought about altering it now that I've learned a lot and cleaning it up, but I'm like, nah, I need to leave it in its original form. And so I put it out there, just, who really is Victor Marx. And that's when we started down the Vaughn Kennedy. And I just put it on my Facebook page, and it went crazy. Like, all of a sudden people were like, oh, tell me more, tell me more. So to answer your question, once I put that out there, up to that point is just me. And once I put it out there, then people start sending me stuff. And one of the biggest things that changed everything was when someone reached out to me and said, I have information on who Mr. K is, the infamous Mr. K.
And in Kennedy.
As in Kennedy.
Okay.
Right. So I have information on who Mr. K is, his name, because I see a wedding, a marital certificate to Rita Boyette, which is Victor's mom, which would have been around that timeline. And it was G.D. Kennedy. Okay. So she handed me G.D. Kennedy. She said, I just have searched and searched, and I can't find anything. So an entire day, and then I found him. I found Glois Dean Kennedy, and he was indicted for drug smuggling, international drug smuggling. So this terrible abuser guy who made Victor kill people and chop cats' heads off, and this guy had been indicted for international drug smuggling. And I'm like, why do we not know that? Because that would fit Victor's story so well, right? Not only was this guy chopping off cats' heads and making me shoot people, but he was also an international drug smuggler. Like, it just fits so well. So him not releasing that information told me more than ever. And then in addition to it, his brother, Michael Kennedy, was indicted with him. So his allegedly highly abused brother goes through life and then hooks up with this terrible, terrible stepdad and is also indicted on this international drug smuggling. And so this is where just none of this, everything starts kind of falling apart here, because why doesn't Victor say my dad? Because the way he portrays the story is he went to prison, but he always kind of segues it from he was terrible to me, he was an abusive man, waterboarded me, did whatever, and he went to prison. So what it gives you is this segue is he was a horrible, horrible man and went to prison for what he did to me and to all these other kids, when really he went to prison for international drug smuggling. And I could never figure out why he doesn't say his name. And it's pretty simple, and it's an assumption on my part. But if you look up Glois Dean Kennedy, there is only one in the entire world, and he was indicted for international drug smuggling, and he's Victor Marx's stepdad. Why would Victor Marx not bring this up? Well, what's interesting is the more we dig into smuggling and running and trafficking, why would he want to bring attention to someone directly impactful in his life who happened to be a drug smuggler?
Right. I mean, he was already bringing up like his violence. So why leave out this other part? So you started to say that told you kind of everything you needed to know. That told you something. What did that tell you in your mind? It
started me down the path of why would he not bring up smuggling? It fits so well into the story of who Mr. K is, right?
Mhm.
Like, he's a bad dude. Of course he's
Mhm.
a drug smuggler. And what it came down to was that, let's look at Victor Marx and trafficking. Let's look at Victor Marx and drug running, child trafficking, gun running. Let's start there.
Mhm.
And
Wow.
here we are.
And then you started uncovering these things. So we saw a lot of what you had uncovered and what you report. Like, you had a whole report, a lot of it on Candace Owens. So, people who didn't see that, I'm sure a lot of people here already have, but you can see that. But what was interesting to me is pretty much verbatim. She repeated what you had in your report, in your reporting, and used that. Now, bullet points. Give me the top bullet points of what was in that report, and then I'll ask, and I would like to know what didn't make it into that report.
I don't know. I'll start backwards. I think everything made it into that report.
Okay.
Probably the only thing that didn't make it in, and I don't know why, and I don't remember if it was in my report or whatnot, is, but she brought it up to Victor when she interviewed him. Next was guns to Haiti. I don't think she brought that up. And to be honest, I don't remember if that was actually in that writing. But the person sitting across from her, Corby Hall, knows very well about guns in Haiti. And so we can kind of circle back to that. But then the bullet points. So the bullet points of that writing were more about Corby Hall.
Okay.
And because now fast forward from November, I'm starting to find this information. I'm starting to write more about Victor Marx. More and more people are reaching out to me. I had even put together a brief at the request of General Flynn to the social media, bogus social media engagement. So what Victor, and I was able to, through mathematics, be able to determine that Victor Marx's campaigns, the reason you see such a large following is through it's a inflated, fraudulent, bot farming type of thing.
Yeah.
And General Flynn wanted my information on that, and so I produced, I think, an 11-page brief for him on that. So I'm already starting to move through this, right? And Corby sends me a text out of the blue, something along the lines of, hey, if you want more information on Victor Marx, I have it. I found a tracker on my truck that is linked back to him. And if you want information on him, I'd be more than happy to share it. Here's some pictures of me, my wife, and Victor. And so this is all coming at me. And I'm like, oh, very interesting. And the irony of that is that morning I had basically told my husband, I am done. This is just getting to be too much. Sorry about the sun. Like,
It's okay.
It'll keep moving. I'm done. And my husband was like, good. I'm glad you're done. This is a whole lot this is really putting us kind of on the hot seat. That afternoon, Corby sends me that text. And I'm like, oh, jeez. So we communicate. So we are driving to some friends' houses that are down in the Monument area, so a long way away. And I told Corby, I said, we're going to call you while we're on the road so we can kind of talk. And that was the first time we talked to Corby. Now, fast forward, the information that Candace had posed on that podcast was all relevant to Corby Hall and his experience and dealings, as the information I had at the time aligned with his experience with Victor Marx. So
Yeah.
the bullet points would be, Victor Marx basically made promises to Corby that ended up driving his business into the ground. And Victor Marx did this crazy retooling prayer that changed his wife and drove his company into bankruptcy, and lots of promises that never came true. So that was that was the entire essence of what that writing was about, was Victor Marx really corrupting Fold AR and Corby Hall.
Mm-hmm. And what day was that Corby got a hold of you?
March 28th. March 28th. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
March 28th.
Okay. And so at this point, I know you said you were feeling like you wanted to be done because you were feeling pretty raw and beat up from the whole thing of digging into Victor and putting it out there for the public. So at this point in time, aside from feeling weary on that front, how were you feeling emotionally and in your mind, and what were your conclusions about Victor?
First and foremost, he's he's a fraud. Because there were some other things that I brought up prior to the Candace, and that was, and my husband pointed it out to me about the $45,000 saves that he claimed he did. My husband said, if I were to remember right, that's basically the amount of people who lost their lives in Vietnam. And I was like, no. I look it up, and of course he's pretty close. It's like 53,000, 52,000, something like that. I'm like, wow, that's
a lot.
That really puts a lot. And then Kurt said, and the other thing that really kind of, throws a wrench in this is he's calling it kind of a spec ops, and Kurt, I'll give as much information about him without giving too much, as he worked on the DOD side. And so Kurt's a very, very smart man who's very sought out after intel type people. Okay.
So Kurt worked for the DOD, now the Department of War.
He worked for Lockheed Martin.
Okay.
So toss it all in there on the DOD side. Okay. Right. And so Kurt said, there's a couple things he said. He said, for instance, the Venezuelan, when Trump went in and bombed, Hugo, I'm sorry if I'm going to butcher these names, but he went into Venezuela and, took the president and came out, and Kurt said, he was kind of think about that. That was a spec op. And there were so many pictures because people have cell phones, right? They're taking pictures from their balcony on their cell phone. They're taking pictures in their car going, oh my God. Why has there never been any pictures of any of Victor Marx's spec ops?
What's a spec op?
A special operation.
Okay.
Meaning you go in as military force and take over something. And so, and he said, so he keeps calling these spec ops. He's like, 45,000 people. Someone's going to have a cell phone.
It's 3:00.
I'm sorry. My computer talks. And so, so he said, there's going to be somebody with a cell phone. Why do we not have somebody's cell phone of him, hustling 150 people onto an airplane to fly away? And I'm like, okay, so these are all kind of the logical things, right? That start to play into it. And so there was that kind of stuff. So when you asked me, what did I think of Victor? I thought he was just a fraud. And what he is he's unfortunately a religious, zealot who's collecting money from people under premises that are, in fact, not true. And so that starts to cross over into, all right, now we have a real moral problem here. So the entire time I'm thinking Victor Marx is a fraud. Corby comes into the picture, and Corby is really kind of my first person I talked to that had firsthand one-on-one person to Victor Marx that I'm like, okay, I want to listen to this guy. And so here we are.
And what were the emotions you went through? What were you feeling when you got that call, or when you made that call and you had your first conversation?
I was an assortment of things, because there were some things he said that logically it just didn't really make a lot of sense to me. For instance, he said, when we came upon Victor, our company was having a hard time, we're having a hard time making payroll. We're, really struggling. The gun business was in the Trump slump, and he explained what the Trump slump was, which is kind of self-explanatory in the gun industry. And he went on and he said, and Victor Marx, fast forward, Victor Marx wanted us to make guns, to produce and manufacture guns for him to take to Haiti, one to assassinate Jimmy Barbecue, and another to bring guns in Haiti. And I said, no way, that's wrong. That was my first red flag with Corby, because I'm like, as noble as I think you're trying to portray yourself, your company's also in dire straits. And you're trying to tell me that somebody wants an order that could really help, and you're saying no. That was my first red flag. Then,
and that's the first conversation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that Victor also wanted 50,000 guns for the IDF. And I'm like, wow. And you're so moral and so above, like, you're going to go ahead and say no to this. Okay. That's hard to believe if your company is in dire straits that you're going to say no to this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of my first red flag. But unfortunately, I turned a blind eye to some of this stuff because, admittedly, when I look back on it, I was more focused on I just wanted bad information. I just wanted any and all information I could get on Victor Marx. Mm-hmm. And so I turned a blind eye to this stuff.
So you said that was one of the red flags. What were the others?
With Corby?
Yeah.
Oh, the list is long. I mean, there's things he told us that is unfortunately I can't really say on here because it would be indicative of how I proved him wrong. That Corby does not live a morally ethical, high life of integrity. So take those things and then now apply it to, but you do these things over here that are questionable and morally wrong, but you're not going to make guns to go to Haiti. Okay. Now we're starting to get into, and again, these are all the things I'm turning a blind eye to.
Doesn't everybody, I just want to ask this question that just popped into my mind, but doesn't everybody have a red line? I'll do this, but I won't do this. Did that cross your mind?
Yes. And that was the excuse I made. That is exactly the excuse I made. I'm like, okay, maybe going to strip clubs in every city you visit and having threesomes with strippers is on this side of the red line.
Okay.
But manufacturing guns to Haiti is on the other side of the red line.
Okay.
Like I did have a hard time wrapping my head around that, mm-hmm. but nonetheless I did. I don't even know if I wrapped my head around it or even really like believed it, but I rationalized it. I made it like, oh, well, right. Everybody's different. Everybody's
because that's this kind of thing, but it's not guns and it's not killing, and it's not,
Right.
all that stuff.
Right. In fact, guns to Haiti is illegal. Threesomes with strippers isn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was
Mhm.
able to rationalize it. Oh, okay. But here's what I have found out with enough time with Corby is that's the line Corby walks. Corby will tell you what he knows is not to be illegal that he has participated in, but he will leave out what is illegal. And for instance, what he does is he will tell a lie about someone, but for that someone to come back and correct that lie would mean that they are admitting that they actually did do something wrong. See, he will say, for instance, what he said about Victor Marx is Victor Marx wanted 50 guns for Haiti. For Victor Marx to come back and correct him, Victor Marx, because with enough proof and talking to enough people and enough sourced information I have, Victor Marx would have to come back and say, I didn't want 50, I wanted 21. And Victor Marx isn't going to say that. He's not going to say I wanted 21 guns for Haiti because there's an arms embargo for Haiti. No weapons can go into Haiti. There's a United States arms embargo. You cannot bring guns into Haiti. Period. Ammunition. You cannot bring anything like that. So what Corby does is he lies, but to correct that lie would mean that Victor Marx would have to come in and say what he in fact, no, it wasn't 50, but it was only 21. And
Gotcha.
so like I said, this is kind of the Corby show. Corby, I have sex with strippers, I have threesomes with strippers, but I would not send guns to Haiti. Or I would not manufacture guns for Haiti. To be very clear, Corby never sent guns to Haiti. He did not do that. Corby manufactured guns for a Haiti mission.
And do you think that was he knowingly made guns?
Oh yeah,
for Haiti.
100%.
Okay. And so,
because what happens in stuff like this, and it's probably the same way with you too, Teresa, is you put something out there, people will contact you. And the people who have contacted me are very intimately and intricately involved to know exactly what was going on and what was happening and what actually happened. So
at what point did you feel like, okay, so tell me where it went from there. So you had red flags, you made reasonings and ignored, what alarms were going off in your head. And I want to ask this question real fast. Is 50, I'm just curious because you probably know because your husband, like, is 50 guns a lot to get to Haiti?
One gun is a lot to get to Haiti.
Okay.
So here, just so you know, just so you know, just to be fair, Teresa, I was exactly where you were. So when people are saying guns to Haiti, I'm like, is 50 guns a lot?
Right.
Sorry about that. Is 50 guns a lot? And why is it illegal? I mean, like all of these things. I'm not a gun bro. And so I don't know a lot about this stuff. And 50 guns, 21 guns, any gun, ammunition, you can't do it. So for a small manufacturer like Full AR, though, that is a big order. That's a big request. And speaking to the people I spoke to, they would have been thrilled to get an order for 50 guns for Haiti, but they were very appreciative of the order they did get for Haiti. Go ahead.
How hard is that? What do you need to have in place to get a gun, 50 guns, 40 guns to Haiti?
Private airplane.
Okay.
A private airplane. And this is where my husband said, you have to be very careful of what you say from here, because of what I've been told I can and cannot talk about is a plane with guns with Victor Marx landed in Tampa to go to Haiti. Someone also involved in that mission said, that person goes on about things. Victor takes that and goes in through land through the Dominican Republic into Haiti. And the person who can verify that entry point, there's pictures of them all. Him, Victor, and Jimmy Barbecue are all over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And that person, I have been privy to the phone call with him that he guided Victor Marx in.
Okay.
The Dominican Republic. He was basically his tour guide or whatever you want to call it.
So a person with some authority with the plane said, no, we're not doing this.
Yes.
Okay.
You cannot, first of all, there's not even any ammunition in Haiti for those kind of guns. And Victor's like, I got a plane full of it right here. I've got plenty of ammunition right here.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. And so from what you know, then, I know you get a lot of information. I mean, just from what you've said here. So how likely is it that you said Cori knew
Corby.
Corby, sorry.
People do it all the time. Just so you know. People do it all the time.
Corby knew why he was manufacturing these guns.
Mm-hmm.
Where did his involvement end?
Corby's involvement ended, I would say, at the point of shipping the guns to the FFLs, federal firearm license holders, FFLs.
Okay.
And so I would say it ended there. Corby has made it well known that Victor asked him to even go to Haiti with him. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But so I would say Corby's involvement ended when those guns left his manufacturing plant and were distributed to the FFLs.
Mm-hmm. And so it's your opinion, based on the research and the knowledge that you have, is that Corby has knowledge about what Victor has done. Victor knows Corby has knowledge about things he has done, but there are certain things, say like the number of guns, that he can't protest publicly, because then he would have to admit he had something to do with it. He had some amount of guns.
Right.
Gun.
Well, and if you think about it, Corby even tells a story that I was thinking about today as I was getting ready for your show. Corby even tells a story that's rather damning, in that Corby's story is that Victor Marx wanted a gun with 100-yard scope to basically assassinate Jimmy Barbecue. Corby makes the gun. It's a very elaborate gun. He drives it to Victor's place. He drives it from Texas to Colorado Springs. Says to Victor, this is Corby's story. What are you going to do with this gun? Victor says, I'm going to assassinate Jimmy Barbecue. Victor says, no, you cannot do that. Maybe you should just go and talk to Jimmy Barbecue and see if you can make good, peace with him. And Victor says, oh, okay, I'll do that. Corby says, okay, here's the gun. It's such a damning thing, right? Because that means that Victor is taking this gun. Everyone knows this gun is going to Haiti, and Corby seems to have more of an issue with him blowing someone's head off than taking the gun to Haiti. There's just what happened with Corby and me is things like what I'm saying, his story just fell apart. There was just so many holes in the things he was saying. And
when was that tipping point for you when you decided you were done?
To be official, it would have been May 12th of this year, to be very official. So Corby back, I want to say mid-April. I should know this date better, but Corby was going on Candace. Corby was going on Candace, and as you know, it was my writing that Candace really, took as being the basis. Corby had gone to a show, I want to say it was in Vegas, prior to Candace. So so we had never met Corby or anything, but we talked to him many, many times. So Corby was going to go from Vegas to Tennessee to Candace and stop by and visit us. And so he stopped by, met with us, and he stayed with us, I want to think 2 nights, which a lot of people kind of thought that was strange that he would stay with us. But to understand where we live, first of all, we live in a beautiful home in the mountains of Colorado. And it's it's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath, 7,500 square foot home that is just, it's a beautiful home. We have many visitors who come, and we'll have people who reach out and say, I need some time away. Can I come stay with you? And we do. And sure. So someone coming to our house and spending the night is just really not outside of the norm for us. And so Corby doing that wasn't outside of the realm of possibility. I will say that in the middle of the night before he got here, I did wake up and I was shaking my husband and I said, what if Corby killed Charlie Kirk? Why have we not taken this into consideration? And my husband, he's waking up. He's like, well, we probably should have thought of this before 5 hours.
But wait, how out of the blue, how do you get that question?
The conversations with Corby they're almost like they're presented in a way, and I've told several people this, he presents things in the way of almost like a riddle. Like he knows the answer, but he's going to give it to you. He's going to give you the question for you to research and solve so that he's not the one telling you what he knows.
So what was this riddle?
Well, it was very much the information he had about Victor Marx and Charlie Kirk and the Fold AR. And it was just all he had so much information, and he put it in a way that he had come to this on his own, that Victor had something to do with Charlie's assassination. But the way, if you thought about it and how it had been presented, the information he had was actually very much like, oh, maybe he has this information because he is intimately involved. Like, and so for me to wake up like that, and again, I know how Candace really gets beaten down for her dreams and her feelings and her intuitions, and she really gets beaten down for that. And sure, I get it, but I'm telling you, it's something I can relate to. That being said, Kurt was like, we have talked to him for so many hours. I just am not seeing it. I'm like, okay, let's go with that. So Corby comes, and it's okay visit. It's an okay visit. And then he goes on Candace, and he said some strange things on Candace that I thought were, Candace had made a comment about, I don't remember the context, but she had made a comment that said, yes, they come as your friends. And Corby said, sorry, Charlie. And I was like, where?
Oh,
Yeah, because Candace was talking about something like, basically a saying, and her response was, they come as your friends. And Corby said, sorry, Charlie. And I was like, we were watching it live going, what in the world? Why would he say that? Okay, set it off to the side. Whatever, no big deal. Visit ends. The Candace thing goes, he goes home. Everything kind of goes back to normal. May 7th, I want to say, he sends us a text. He sends a text because there's a group chat between Kurt, Corby, and I. And he sends a text. Hey, I would like to get away for a little while. Is it okay if I come up and see you guys? And we said, sure, go ahead. And so he's like, I'm going to start driving. I'm going to be there, late at night. And we're like, okay. So he drives all day and all night, or maybe all day and whatever. He gets here fairly late and I'm already asleep. And Kurt goes to greet him at the door. And Kurt comes in and I said, any idea why he's here? And Corby and Kurt's like, he just said he needed to get away. And we're like, okay. Well, then he starts telling people are asking, why are you here? And Corby said, and it was, he kept saying it repeatedly, which was, I'm here to make sure that Victor Marx does not ever do another retooling prayer. And he had never said that to us before until he started saying it to other people in our presence. And so take this, he was here, I want to say, for 5 days and 4 nights. And through those 5 days, I just start, his story's falling apart. There's holes in his story. I start questioning things. I start asking him deeper questions. Now my cognitive dissonance has caught up to me. And now I have a moral obligation to question these things that I turned a blind eye to. And every time I'd ask a question, it just created another hole, and another lie was exposed. And so I am already on the over Corby Hall train. And then he tells me he's going to kill Victor Marx.
but in those exact words.
No, he said, he came in, he sat down next to me and he said, I am in a homicidal rage. Now, keep in mind, it'd be very easy for me to just blow that off, right? Because it's just one thing. It's just a thing. But it is an accumulation of so many things that had transpired that it was very worrisome. And he said he knew exactly where he could sit outside of Victor Marx's property to get the cleanest shot. And so I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting from him, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 feet away from him. We're out on our deck, and I'm actually getting scared. I'm thinking, because I have come to the realization over this period of time that Corby Hall does not really have a conscience. He has absolutely no personal responsibility for anything that has happened in his life. Everything is someone else's fault. It's ordained from God. Like, Corby has literally no personal accountability. So when he says that, and I'm sitting there, I actually am scared, because I'm like, I have come to the realization he does not have a conscience. And then the next thing he said is, it is 100% Victor Marx's fault I am getting divorced. Well, and he says his wife's name, her too. It's her fault too. And then he goes on and he said, I've actually sat and thought about it. what could I have done differently? What could I have done to not have this happen? And absolutely nothing. I have done nothing wrong. Now I'm a little freaked out. So he's in a homicidal rage and he has no accountability. So we carry on the conversation.
Let me ask you, pause. I just want to pause 1 second and ask you, aside from his words, were his mannerisms any different than other times when you had spoken to him on the phone or were in his physical presence?
So the thing that probably I have to say about Corby that was most alarming is he doesn't really ever digress. He doesn't, like, you know, because we all talk, right? We talk. We feel better when we talk. We're like, oh, you know, okay. Corby doesn't. In fact, we took him for a hike because Kurt and I were like, we need to, like, this guy needs to
Decompress.
We need, and it's also not something that's unfamiliar with what we do up here. People will come, they'll visit us, and we'll go we live in the mountains. There's just beautiful, beautiful trails everywhere. So we'll go for a walk. And so we took Corby on, I mean, it wasn't by any means like a killer hike. It was like 3 miles, you know, 1.5 miles in, 1.5 miles back. And the entire time, Corby, we're walking, he's just getting more and more and more riled up. By the end of the hike, which most people are usually kind of a little more like, I feel good. I feel better. This really isn't this big of a problem. At the end of the hike, Corby was worse than at the beginning of the hike. He's now more mad. He's more upset. He's more irate. He's more, he's just not
agitated.
Yes, he's not decompressing. And so as the days go on, he's just getting more. And so that was probably what I would say in our presence was the most alarming, was that he's not decompressing. And I will also say that we were privy to his text messages that he had with several people in the Victor Marx camp. And one of the things that was probably most tough about that was I could see why Victor Marx kicked him to the curb, because the text messages that he's firing off to Victor and his team and various members of his team, they're alarming. Like he's, and when Victor said, he's unstable, I was like, whatever, Victor. I hated to admit it that Victor was right. He was unstable. I have every reason to believe Victor Marx had every right to distance himself from Corby Hall. And for someone like me, who's the anti-Victor Marx, got to get this guy out. He can't be the governor of Colorado. To come to that was a pretty, that really sucked. It really sucked to have to come to that.
So you said you were becoming frightened. You felt frightened. So how did
I was
you?
pretty sure he was going to choke me to death.
Okay.
To be honest with you.
And how did you manage that? And what did you do to try to distance yourself from his physical presence on your property?
So it wasn't just that. So as he's talking, I'm wise enough to know that I can't say to him, you got to own your role, because we've tried that and it doesn't work with him. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to say that in that position. And so he said, these people claim to be Christians. They're not fucking Christians. None of these people are fucking Christians. And so I saw kind of a way in. I said, I'm going to be honest with you, Corby. I can see why you would feel that way, because with all the work I've done on Victor Marx and putting it out there, the people that have been the worst to me are those who call themselves Christians. I said, so I can really relate to that. And I realized he wasn't even listening to me. He just keeps talking. He's just talking. And he scoots his chair back, gets up and walks out, and he leaves. And he says, I'm going to go take a drive.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I think that's a really good idea. He leaves. He doesn't leave yet, but he comes back and he said, Candace is going to do another episode about Victor Marx today. I said, today? I said, it's already like 4:30. I thought she was kind of on 3:00. And he's like, no, she's running late and she's going to be doing a show on Victor Marx today and the Evergreen shooting. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. He leaves and goes away. I come into the house. Kurt has his headphones on. He's coding and he's none the wiser of what has just happened. And I told him, and he's like, oh, well, okay, this is really bad. So Corby's gone. Kurt has decided he obviously needs to talk to Corby. There's a whole kind of other series of things that happens that's irrelevant to the story, but it's relevant but irrelevant. I'll just drag it on. Corby comes back and a couple hours later, and Kurt walks out to talk to him. Corby is still agitated. Now he's more mad than he was when he left, and he told Kurt, he walks over to Kurt, and Kurt wants to talk to him about not driving, which is what he was driving recklessly through our neighborhood because someone had called about that. And Kurt wanted to go talk to him about that and about his homicidal rage to Victor Marx. Kurt walks up to him and Corby said, I'm going to go fuck him up. And Kurt said, that is not a good decision. There's nothing good that's going to come of that. I've been pissed off before and I've had wiser people tell me it's just not worth it. Corby's just not listening. He's telling him about same thing. It's his wife's fault. It's Victor's fault. So they stay out there and they're talking for several hours. I go to bed. Kurt comes in and Kurt's like, I don't know what to do. He's not unwinding. We all go, the whole house shuts down at like 8:30 that night. We're all in bed. Corby goes to bed. I wake up and I told Kurt, I said, Corby Hall's stay at the Kennedy compound needs to come to an end. I don't want him in our house anymore. And Kurt said, okay, well, do you want me to go downstairs and talk to him? And I said, listen, he's got like 3 full day hours down there. No. And I said, let's go, let's get the dogs, let's leave, and let's call him and tell him he needs to leave. And during that period of time, everything blew up. There's a group text that's going on, and he's unraveling on this text, and another person who's on the text is also somewhat unraveling. Everything turns bad. Corby packs up and he leaves all on his own. We don't even have to ask him to leave. He leaves on his own. Now here we are. And now Kurt and I have to make decisions on, is Corby Hall going to go assassinate Victor Marx? We're put in a position where everything is, I'm not saying it's leaning that way, like it's for sure, but it was at a like 65% worry mark of this may happen. He actually may go kill Victor Marx. What do we do with this? And so fast forward, police get involved, FBI gets involved, lots of people get involved. Victor Marx and us talk. It's the first time actually Victor Marx and I have ever spoken. We have a conversation. It's like an hour-long conversation, and he tells us a lot more about his experience with Corby that, as I learned prior to talking to him, had another conversation with somebody else intricately involved with Corby. It all lined up. It's a very complicated moral quagmire, if you will.
So one question I have before I ask you the next question is who initially made contact with Candace to give her the information about Victor and Corby?
Sure. Okay, so there was a group of us so Corby had reached out to me. I told Corby, there's somebody else who's also a researcher on Victor Marx that I would like you to talk to. She's very intricately involved. And so we start this group chat. And within this chat, so there's Corby, myself, Kurt, this other researcher, and then kind of comes this person who is kind of just tagging along, hoping to get some recognition. And she kind of had the wherewithal that during Candace's show, you give $50 and you say, hey, you might want to check out Victor Marx.
Mm-hmm.
So she did that. And apparently there was enough information. And just keep in mind, I'd already sent Candace and Sean Ryan and everybody else, as much information as I could, and got absolutely no response, nowhere at all.
Okay.
And so,
when you sent your information to Candace and Sean Ryan and other people, when was that?
During that whole period, like whatever.
You kind of just sent it. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's important you check out this guy. Here's some pictures of him with, why is Eileen Marks on the tarmac with Erica Kirk?
Okay.
Like,
yeah.
You need to do some research here.
Mm-hmm.
And I got nothing, nowhere. No one ever responded. I accepted that. That's just how that goes. These people are way bigger than anything I have, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, this particular person had reached out and said, here's $50, Candace, in the donation thing. Well, apparently it was enough of intrigue within that the show reached out to them.
Okay.
And then got in touch with Corby, and Corby gave them all of my stuff as well as all of this other researcher stuff.
Okay.
That's
got it. And then who initiated contact between you and Victor?
Victor reached out to me because I had spoken to someone after this whole thing happened. He leaves. Kurt and I are just really kind of, trying to figure out, what do we do here? What is the right thing to do here? We cannot. Do I want Victor Marx to be governor? No. Do I think Victor Marx is a corrupt, under the guise of Christianity? Yes. Do I want him assassinated? Absolutely not. Under no circumstances is that anywhere in my brain of thinking. So Kurt and I are thinking about how we handle this. What do we do? Well, out of the blue, I reached out to somebody I knew who knew Corby. I reached out to them. I'd had their phone number. I tried to reach out to them at one other point in time, kind of trying to, maybe vet Corby a little bit. They didn't take my call. I went ahead and called them out of the blue that day, and I got a hold of them. They answered, and we spent the next 4 hours on the phone talking very specifically about Corby Hall. And that person also knows Victor. So they contacted Victor and said, I think it's important what happened. And Victor contacted me and sent me a text and said, hi, Corby, or hi, Cori. See, I even do it. Hi, Cori, this is Victor Marx. Can we chat? And I said, yes, we can. Give me a call. He called. We talked for about an hour.
Okay. So he reached out to you. So you weren't surprised to get his call?
No.
Okay.
Well, and at the end of the phone call with this person, they did ask me, I do feel obligated to let Victor Marx know this. Are you okay if I tell him what we've talked about? And I said, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of, to be honest, if I'm going to be really honest about this, it was a way, like it kind of took the weight off of me from having to reach out to Victor or the FBI or the police. It kind of took, I will be honest and tell you that my moral compass is not so clairvoyant and clear that I knew exactly what to do. But them taking that off of my chest and doing it was a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was
Yeah.
out of my hands. Somebody else was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm to be very honest.
So you spoke with Victor for about an hour.
Mhm.
Is it possible that the things that Victor said that he got into your head?
Victor's very charming. Victor is very charming. He is very charismatic. He's funny. He's an incredible sense of humor. I mean, we're on that phone call. We end the phone call, and Kurt and I look at each other and we're like, what just happened? Like, it is, Victor Marx is an enigma. I cannot tell you at first. So, and I will be honest, it probably took me, I don't know, 2 days to kind of rewire my brain to be like, okay, I get it. If anything, it gave me firsthand knowledge on how he does what he's a funny guy. If I'm going to be honest with you, like, I take everything I know out of Victor. Everything I know. I like Victor Marx, but I know a whole lot.
Right.
And I mean, it is, like I said, it is a moral quagmire. And especially where things get really strange with Victor is that he had valid reasons to discount Corby Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand why Victor Marx kicked Corby to the curb, but I also understand why Victor Marx solicited Corby, because Corby was a vulnerable, naive, business owner who happened to manufacture guns, and the charm was turned on to him too.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
Yeah. So as skilled as Victor is at retooling and getting into your mind, and even he's probably had some training, I would say, before now, in addition to just how he normally is. Do you think he could have gotten into your mind?
No.
Okay.
I just so you know, no, but yes. Initially, yeah. But again, so think about this. We're in a very vulnerable spot, right? We just had a guy in our house saying he's going to assassinate, or a homicidal rage, and he knows exactly where he's going to take the shot to get a clean shot of killing Victor Marx. And I was somewhat scared of him. So I'm now in that position of compromised vulnerability, and Victor can come in. So do I think he got into my mind? For a little bit? Yeah, for sure. But then fortunately enough, so for instance, I pity anybody who's around him all the time, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to beat that. He's, like I said, charming, charismatic, funny. And for me, humor in a dark time is an incredible skill to have. Mm-hmm. And he has that skill. So in a dark moment, he can make you laugh. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah. And so did he get into my mind? Sure. But then I was like, all right, I'm going to take that. I'm going to compartmentalize how I'm feeling right now. And I'm going to revisit all of this information I have, and I'm going to see how I feel. And once I revisited all the information I had, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Now at least I have firsthand knowledge as to why this works, as to why people are like, oh, Victor Marx.
Yeah. And so then, okay, so did you ever ask Corby if he had anything to do with Charlie Kirk's death?
I did yesterday. The reason I knew, but
not at the time when you woke up and you're like,
no,
did he have something? Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
No. And I would assume, because I'd like to believe myself smart enough not to ask somebody who may have done that while they were in my house, and he's got, 3 ARs in our house and a couple more in his truck. He just left a gun show, right? No, but I did. Coincidentally, I did yesterday because out of the blue, Corby sends me just what Corby does, just a whole of text. And he said, I've been gracious enough to not talk about you. You need to keep your name out of my name out of your fucking mouth. And so I was like, this is really out of the blue. So that's when I reached out to you. And because I kind of pieced it together, oh, somebody's talking about something. Somebody's talking about me or Corby or Victor. And sure enough, you had mentioned, I mean, you're talking like within moments of you saying, I had made a comment that things aren't the same as what they were when you initially reached out to me. And I told Corby, I said, and he said something along the lines, you keep my name out of your fucking mouth, or I'm going to sue you. And I said, you have no idea what I'm capable of. And he goes on and threatens me more with more lawsuits. And
he said that to you, that you have no idea what he's capable of?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I have no idea what he's capable of. And I said, and he said, you embarrassed yourself with the information you gave Candace. And I'm like, that's really an odd thing to say, since the information I gave Candace was all pro you. But anyways, and so I just flat out asked him, I said, did you kill Charlie Kirk? And I could see the little bubble type in, and then nothing, bubble type in, nothing, bubble type in, nothing. And he responds with, have you stopped taking your meds? And I respond back with, did you kill Charlie Kirk? Bubble type in, bubble type in, bubble type in. Like he stops, I'm just sitting and I'm watching the whole thing. And then he responds with, see, this is why you need to stop your nonsense. You don't even know what you're doing. I'm going to sue you if you say another word about me, take all my stuff off the internet, and now you're blocked.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at.
So you wrote your piece. So after you and I connected on X, that was when I went back and then looked at what you had posted. And you had posted your Death of Truth. What was that article? If you guys want to read it, you can go to Cori Kennedy on X. What's your handle on X?
At Mrs. Cori Kennedy, MRS Cori Cori Kennedy, Kennedy at Mrs. Cori Kennedy. Okay. It was the truth. So what it was is, so this is after Corby leaves. My phone is ringing nonstop. Because I had come out and said, oh, first of all, because Victor Marx says my name.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let me stop you for a second. So then how did Candace get her information that supposedly the FBI, and I said supposedly, I don't know if that happened, like the FBI was after him, or Victor Marx was just saying that or whatever. Mm-hmm. Do you know who was responsible for letting Candace know?
That'd be me.
Okay.
Because that night, so after we talked with Victor Marx, Victor says, I have obviously got to report this to local law enforcement, and they're going to be contacting you. I'm like, okay. So the El Paso, the Colorado Springs Police Department, I don't think it was the El Paso Sheriff, the Colorado Springs Police Department reaches out, takes a statement, tell him everything that I just covered here. And he's like, okay, great, thanks. Calls, and then they call back. Colorado Springs Police, the guy he calls me like 3 times that night, gets more information. Okay, great. Then at 10:30, I get a phone call from Agent Cynthia something or another. And she's out of the Denver field office with the FBI, and she had been alerted of everything. And so I gave her a statement. And what she told me is, she said, I'm going to ask you to reach out to all of the people that you reached out to help platform Corby. And I need you to ask them to stop platforming him, because he very well could be getting it in his head, because he's starting to get this following, right? He's starting to get these people who are like, oh, Corby, thank you. Oh, Corby, you're so great. Oh, Corby, Victor's bad. Oh, Corby. He's starting to get it in his head that he is like invincible or is, righteous. And if he keeps getting that platform, this could be actually leading to him why he's doing that. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So I send out a text message there's a group of people that I help platform them, all the local radio people, all the, pretty much the local radio people. And then I had to send something over to Candace because obviously she's the biggest platform. So Skylar then reaches out to us that next day and is like, what the holy hell? And so we told him. And in fact, when Corby was unraveling on Kurt, he was even telling Kurt, fuck Candace Owens. She said she was going to buy my guns, and now that's all a bunch of bullshit. And so we gave them kind of the lowdown of that. So that is how. Now, how she took that is part of where the death of truth came from, because I never said the FBI has an APB or anything out for him. I never said that. I do know that they all contacted Corby and they all wanted to know where he was and they all asked him questions, but there was no man, as far as I knew, there was nothing indicative to me, unless they knew something I didn't know. There was nothing indicative that there was a manhunt for Corby Hall.
So those words never came from you?
No, but I know the FBI and the Colorado Springs and the El Paso sheriff were actually, looking to talk to him, but not come on in here. We gotta, and so no. And that was part of where the death of truth I wrote is. It's like, kind of what we were talking about the other day, which is confirmation bias, right? Like you're taking something and you're running with it. And Victor did too, by the way, because he made a post the next morning that was like, all right, guys, I told you he was unstable, but of all people who came out of the woodwork to tell me that Corby Hall wants to kill me was Cori Kennedy. So once he said that, my phone is just blowing up. People, and mainly with people who are really pissed off at me for now turning on them to be for Victor Marx. And it's like, okay, I'm not for Victor Marx. I'm for him not being assassinated. That's what I'm for. Yeah. But my phone was ringing off the hook. Pissed off people. So Kurt and I were going to take a road trip. Anyways, we just packed up and put the road trip in motion several days early. And that was when Victor went on Candace. We're on the road. We're kind of in the middle of a desert overlanding. And, we hook up and we watch the episode, and Candace and Victor are kind of going back and forth about all sorts of things. And Candace said things that she shouldn't have said because it was compromising an investigation. And
like what?
She said, so as we understand it, you're under investigation by the FBI. And I'm firing off texts. I'm like, stop saying that. You should not be saying that. You should not be saying, stop saying that. And Skylar called me back after the episode and said, I don't think we named you as being who said that. I'm like, yeah, you did. Yeah. And so there was just a whole lot of that going on. And Candace cited things that were incorrect, and Victor cited things that were incorrect. And Corby, at this point in time, is firing off a bunch of texts to us too. And he's saying things that are incorrect. And that's when I wrote the Death of Truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's saying things that just aren't right for either their own benefit or their lack of ability to research.
Mm-hmm.
Either thing could be true.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to ask this question because I think other people will ask it because you were working, to get Victor elected. Were you ever a paid member of his campaign?
No.
Okay.
No, I have never. So during this period of time when, kind of back up when I told you, I had told Kurt, I'm done with this, that March, I'm done with it. One of the primary reasons I was done with it was because people are just vicious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you put truth out there, and you're a terrible person, and you ask questions, and you're more terrible, and so that was why I was done. I'm like, these are, and the irony of it is these are my people, right? These are Republicans. These are people.
Right.
These are my people, and I was just like, I'm done with this. So when I was, I'm sorry, you asked a question. I veered off.
So yeah, I had asked if at any point in time you were on Victor's payroll.
Oh no. And the reason I brought up what I said is because I was accused. I've been accused. I was never accused of being on I was never accused of being on Victor's payroll during those few weeks that I was pro Victor, but the entire time I was writing about Victor, I have been accused of being paid oppo, and I have never ever even been contacted to do anything like that. There's no check sitting in my mailbox. There's no Venmo payments that have come in. No one has paid me, and no one's even offered to pay me. Mm-hmm. The irony, though, is here's what's crazy: is yesterday during Corby's tirade, because someone, just so you know, which is interesting, I have had more people reach out to me about my work on Corby than they have about my work on Victor. So many people have come out of the woodwork about Corby. And one of them told me that he told them that my husband and I work for Victor, and we are responsible for the shooting at the high school. We are directly involved with with the Evergreen High School shooting. So I asked Corby, I asked him that yesterday. I said, so as I've been told, you're telling people that Kurt and I are associated with the Evergreen shooting. And he said, yes, I have said that because there's circumstantial evidence that points directly to that. So when you ask, has anyone ever accused me of being paid by Victor? The only person who has was Corby Hall yesterday.
Okay. And you're saying in all your investigation into Victor Marx and as much information as you got about him, you have a lot more information that's coming to you regarding Corby.
I wouldn't say a lot more. What I have is more people. My work with Victor Marx has been, as far as people reaching out to me to provide information, there's only been a handful of people. Most of the work I've done on
It's 4 o'clock.
I'm so sorry. Victor Marx has been solely myself.
Okay.
That has been me.
You didn't get tips.
Other than there was the GD Kennedy. The GD Kennedy was really the big one that just opened up a whole. That being said, people will reach out and say, thank you for your work. I really like it. Have you ever checked into his, real estate dealings? Things like that. That's a lot of how my communication is. With Corby Hall, people call me to tell me very specific things about him. I mean, very specific, for instance, Corby Hall, one of the things, and it was one of my own fault was he had claimed, and I wrote about it, was that Victor Marx basically drove Corby Hall and Full AR into bankruptcy. Okay, that's factually incorrect, and I should have done my research, because Corby Hall filed bankruptcy with Full AR, like, I want to say 14 days after he met Victor. Victor did not drive them into bankruptcy, and Corby is still in bankruptcy, and he tells everybody he's not in bankruptcy. This is all public record. It's all documented.
So if researchers want to go look and see if that's true, they can, because it's public record, you can just get that information.
Oh yeah, for sure. And you know, one of the things he was upset about, Victor kept saying, "You divorced your wife," and he was like, "I did not divorce my wife." Well, he did. He filed the initial paperwork. It's trivial little things, and I know that it, you know, in the big scheme of life, these are not big dealings. But I don't know it. But it just tends to. And now that he's out there lying about us being involved with the Evergreen school shooting, he's just a liar. You know, because that's obviously a lie.
So in what ways is he alleging that you were involved with the Evergreen incident?
I'll read you what he said.
Now, did he say this to you, or he's saying it to other people?
He's saying it to other people.
Okay.
I said, as I understand it, you're telling right here. As I understand it, you're telling people that Kurt and I work for Victor and we're party to the shooting at Evergreen High School. What say you? His response, I told people that there is circumstantial evidence to show that. Yes. And I believe you are involved both. Yes. It is not a fact. It is not a fact, and I have not told or suggested to anyone that it is a fact. But he's implying it, right? And he said, we can surely litigate that too if you desire. And it's also clear that you are attempting to get me killed. So there's that too. So now, not only, and he said, I say once more, stand down. This is not your battle. This is between me and Victor. It is no longer yours. You abandoned it when you turned on me without cause. It's just a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. So now, after you wrote the article, and I could read from your article how I could, I guess, maybe just get an idea of how you were feeling when you wrote that.
Which one? The one for Candace pro Corby, or the one about the death of truth after?
The death of truth after. So what were you feeling when you wrote that? And this was May, if I remember, you had posted a picture with Corby May 20th.
That was the hike. Hike. Mm-hmm.
I think it was the next day, or, you know, correct me if I'm wrong.
A little further back. I believe we hiked on May 11th.
Okay.
And May 12th is the homicidal rage.
Okay. And then you wrote the article, what date?
I want to say it was within that week. Because we had left and we were on the road traveling. And I remember writing. Like I said, we were kind of in the middle of nowhere. We overland a lot and go off grid a lot. And so I was in the middle of nowhere writing this.
What was your emotional and mental state when you were writing that?
A lot of how I feel, if you want to know, it's very metaphoric to how I feel about a lot of this, is like how I have this painful acceptance that truth is really a commodity that we are not, that we're very fortunate if we find it, but the likelihood is highly slim. I mean, it's the same thing like it's metaphoric for the Charlie Kirk thing. Like there's so much that doesn't make it, Victor Marx, there's so much that doesn't make sense. Why wouldn't you tell us about Cori Kennedy being an international drug smuggler with your brother? Why would, because it would fit so well. There's a reason, right? There's something there. And why is everyone insistent that Tyler Robinson with a relic of a gun, killed Charlie Kirk? Like these are the things. And then when those of us that are asking questions, just like I did with Victor Marx, it's the same exact thing. I am persecuted.
Yeah.
I am the one persecuted. I'm asking questions. I'm providing facts. I'm providing source detail on things, and I am being persecuted. It's the same thing. So truth, it's an elusive commodity that I just do not believe that if you find it and you find someone, and I think I'm very fortunate because my husband is a man of truth and integrity, and he cannot tell a lie. That is a cherished commodity that I hold on to very tightly, because I run into, like, this has just been nothing but, and then, even the gun that Corby, the stolen gun that Candace really tagged on to about I redact that what I just said. There's a stolen gun that caused an ATF request to go to full AR on the morning of September 10th.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and somebody in Midland, Texas, an officer of some kind had reported a gun stolen, and somehow that tied at some point, some way, it tied in Utah for whatever reason. And then that was my understanding from watching that episode of Candace. And it made me have a question of my head is, okay, why do we have a stolen gun from Midland, Texas tied in with Utah now? And why is that coming up at this point in time? Right.
And the way Corby had portrayed this story was, so there's a gun. He gets this ATF report. What do you know about this gun? Corby talks to the guy who buys the gun, who the gun was stolen from. And according to Corby, he's a sheriff deputy. He's at a gas station, leaves his back door open, goes to get some ice or something, comes back and backpack with his gun. And I think it was not only a full AR, there was another gun and maybe another gun, but I know there's a full AR and another gun. And, but he just so happened to be outside of the realm of cameras and so all of us are going, that seems rather suspect. But Corby's like, no, I believe him. He sound like a good guy. And I even asked him, I said, are you sure you're not believing him just simply because he's law enforcement? And, and he's like, no, I believe him. I'm like, okay. So I kind of nixed that, right? I kind of nixed that being anything, even though the gun had been purchased, sometime in June and was stolen sometime a few weeks later in July. I'm like, I find that to be a little suspect, but what do I know?
Yeah.
Well, so then I go ahead and pull information on that police report for that gun. And the entire story Corby told was not true. So did the police officer lie to Corby, or did Corby lie to us? Because the police report is the guy had his gun, sure, in a backpack. He goes into a residential neighborhood, leaves his trunk open, goes into the house for about 15 minutes. All of 15 minutes, comes out, and that backpack is now gone. The backpack is stolen. First of all, that kind of raised suspicion to me. Like, in a residential neighborhood, people are just instantly on the ball, ready to rob. Maybe. Okay, maybe, sure. Then 10 or 15 days later, that officer also tosses in that about $15,000 to $20,000 worth of jewelry was in the back of the car that was also stolen. And I'm like, okay, this is nonsense now. So that's how much of a spider web all of this goes, right? It starts with a stolen gun, then an ATF report comes out on the morning of Charlie's assassination.
Yeah, that's wild. And I think that's what we're finding so much as we dig into this, so much of this web that we don't know where it's all connected, but it certainly seems like it's connected. Like you see a spider web in a tree, the visual came to my mind, and it's got, it's connected somewhere. You have all these strands, and there are connecting points. It's not just hanging in the air alone.
Right.
So,
another rabbit hole we went down, the orphanage that Victor Marx was supposedly protecting. It's a $45 million orphanage in Haiti that supposedly houses 80 orphans for $45 million a year. And then it starts you down the rabbit hole of these orphanages in Haiti and what they're really doing. I mean, it does not stop. You start to get down into like, it does not stop.
Yeah. Yeah. So where are you now? So, well, first of, I want to ask you, and I know I kind of have an idea of what you may say just based on the article that you wrote, Death of Truth. But in all of this, where do you think you're culpable for you? What was your part in that? What is Candace's part? And then what is our part now as we continue to investigate and dig into our own things that we're investigating, take on and listen to tips and start with the tips. So where is everybody's responsibility? Where was it then for you, and where is it now for you?
So my responsibility now is more of I just wait for the messaging. People call me. People give me things. They'll say, have you ever checked out Victor Marx's, okay, yes, I have. But I'm not going to write about it. It's been written about so many times. There's nothing new I'm going to present. I don't have anything that uncovers that. So I am, for instance, when I say messaging, right? Corby reaching out to me yesterday is messaging, because him panicking and worried that I'm going to say something about him is screaming, I've done something wrong, don't say anything about me, because I come from the truth, right? I'm not worried about what I say, because I don't have to, as long as I am speaking the truth, I don't have to worry. I don't have to try and remember what I said to cover up, because it's the truth. That being said, the truth. I thought I was speaking the truth about Corby when I was saying that Victor Marx drove him into bankruptcy, because that all presented itself, that Victor had really taken advantage of this young couple and had really made promises of grand gestures. And what I came to the conclusion of is several things can be true. I do feel pretty confident that Victor offered grand gestures of abundance, how it was going to be, this was going to lead to a life of abundance. I do believe that. But I also do believe that Corby Hall is completely incapable of manufacturing enough guns so I think there was a whole lot of misconstrued. Corby said, yeah, I can do this. And Corby's like, and Victor Marx like, cool, let's do this. And so there's several things that can be true at once. That being said, so what comes to the truth? If you're wrong about something, you got to say it. That's probably one of the things that has bothered me about Candace, is she has not backtracked on Corby. Now, do I know why? Nope. I have no idea why. Is there part of me that thinks it's ego? Sure. She doesn't want to say that she fell for it, because here's the thing. I'm the one who helped platform him. So I have to own that I helped platform somebody on her. I didn't get him on there, but I provided the information for her to have. And I backtracked that, but she didn't and she won't. So I have.
Is it possible she doesn't know?
She knows.
Okay. How do you know that?
Unless Skylar didn't tell her, put it that way. Unless Skylar did not tell her the information that I sent in extensive writing to about the things I was wrong about, unless Skylar said, I'm not going to, I don't know, who knows what their relationship is, but unless Skylar did not give it to her.
So in the same way that you presented what you believed to be true in the first place, when you felt like you had new information to learn and to give, then you extended that as well. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I cannot live with myself if I have information about something that is inaccurate, and information has been put out to large mass of people of things. Is Victor Marx a fraudulent, corrupt person? Yes, that is true. Unfortunately, so is Corby. And unfortunately, here's where things get really complicated, is Victor actually has some redeeming qualities. Like, whether he's saved people or whether he's helped men become men, whatever that may be, Victor does have some redeeming qualities.
Or cats become dead.
Or cats become dead, right?
I'm just saying.
Right. But there's a whole other not redeeming, right? There's a whole other gigantic not redeeming. This is really one of those complicated things that good people can do bad things, or even bad people can do good things. But where things got really complicated for me is I'm not sure that Corby Hall has much redeeming. So here's a whole new moral quagmire. Yeah. It's very, very complicated. And where am I
complicated? Yeah.
It's complicated. Where am I culpable? I should have looked up. And these are small things, I know, but I should have looked up the bankruptcy. I should have looked up the divorce proceedings. I should have looked up all these things that are filed, but instead I just kind of ran with it. That Victor Marx basically drove Corby's business into the ground, and by making false promises. And not only did I learn that was a lie through my own research, I talked to enough people who were intricately involved, or at one point in time were involved with Full Day Art, to find out, no, the company was already in the ground.
Would that have changed what you reported on Victor?
You mean prior to Candace? Meaning the information that went to Candace?
Yeah. The information that you got from Corby and then in turn gave to Candace, and then, then it got platformed and, exploded. Would anything you have reported changed if you had known those other personal lies that Corby was telling? So
if I look at it from a very honest perspective, the answer to that, Teresa, is probably yes and no. Yes, I would not have really harped on the Victor drove the business into the ground. That really was a core element, foundational element of what I was saying, is that Victor took this innocent couple, and drove their business into the ground with the intent to take this extraordinary patent and get it for pennies on the dollar. That was the foundation of what I report, of how I reported it. So when you say, would I have reported differently? Yes, because I would not have been able to stand by that. But if I'm being totally honest, I think I would have probably just taken something else and replaced it, something else that was true and replaced it, because one of the things that I have to own, and I guess there's no better place to own it than on a podcast, all over the World Wide Web, is the day before Corby left, he gave me this manifesto of his that he was writing that was basically, let me tell you who I am. Let me tell you what I've done. Let me tell you. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh God, this is kind of scary. This is dangerous. And I stopped reading it intentionally because I wanted to be of clear mind about him going to Candace.
Mm-hmm.
And so I look back on that, and I remember exactly where everyone was sitting, and I remember reading this, and he had handed this manifesto, and I'm looking at him going, this is weird. We've crossed over into weird, dangerous, scary, unstable territory. Like, this manifesto is scary. And I did nothing with that. I very easily should have sent that to Candace and said, hey, whoa. Let me hand you this little piece of information about, his whole, going to blow up his high school with a bomb and and his mind about that. And I did not do anything with that.
You still have that manifesto?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Do you think it would have changed Candace's reporting?
No. She's on a mission.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But would I not feel obligated to say what I'm saying right now had I done it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's selfish of me, right? It would have relieved me of some, darker guilt I have.
Yeah.
But do I believe that?
Yeah.
Do I believe
you
that?
Felt? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but would Candace have been like, oh, whoa. I'm not sensing that. I'm not sensing that she would have stopped.
Because at that point in time, you were also were on your own mission with Victor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to the national stage.
Yeah.
And everything I did from the beginning, when I decided that I was like, I got to get this information out about this guy. One of the driving forces was I didn't want the Colorado GOP to be the laughing stock of America, that this is the guy they chose to represent Colorado as the governor, that the Colorado GOP, this is who they chose. My mission was, I do not want the Republican Party of Colorado to be the laughing stock. And you know what? Well, we are. Yeah. Rightfully so. We deserve it 100%.
Is there anything in your tips and information that you've gathered that leans you in any way to consider or wonder if Victor Marx or Corby Hall had anything to do with Charlie Kirk on September 10th?
Absolutely.
And what would you say?
Do I have enough? Well, and that's two separate things, right? Victor and Corby. Mm-hmm. Do I think Victor has something to do with it? Yes, absolutely. Victor did not pull the trigger. Victor did not. If it's an exploding mic or whatever that whole story is, did Victor have anything to do with this? No. Victor did not go. And there's even video. I even saw the guy who did put the mic on Corby on Charlie. Does Victor have anything to do with like that? No. Does Victor have something to do with the backside of it? The kind of the whole plan, the reasoning, yes, I do believe that. Mm-hmm. Does Corby Hall? I wonder, but let me tell you where the problem comes as to why I hit this roadblock is because Corby has this really strange desire, something I've never seen before in my life, to be intimately involved with catastrophic events in a way that makes him culpable. For instance, the whole Columbine thing, he likes to put himself kind of in as a central player in the Columbine shooting back in 99. Corby likes to, and so the problem I have is because he's put himself kind of in a center position to, after enough research and speaking to people and newspaper articles and everything, what he's done is he's embellished this story to put himself as some sort of a central character, and he's not. That's what has my problem about saying that about.
Got it. Yeah, just so maybe so you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is in order to, in your opinion, in order to feel more important or involved in important events, that he has or may have alluded to or directly said something that made it seem like he knows something or has some sort of type of information that he doesn't.
Yes, correct. And he has now said to several people directly that have gotten back to me, and he's put the innuendos out there all over X, that he is certain 100% that Victor Marx is responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. I mean, he's, and so let me toss something else out there. One of the things that kind of goes around my head is sometimes I've wondered if he's trying to kind of steer the conversation that way, so that the whole Haiti gun running, the Haiti guns he created for Haiti, we're no longer talking about that. We're not talking about that anymore. We're not talking about Victor Marx running guns in Haiti or taking guns to Haiti, or whether it's taking guns to Haiti or gun running or assassinating warlords, whatever it is, he can't do that. There's strong, strict laws about that. And Corby, knowing that these guns were going to Haiti, he's also that is illegal as well. He cannot do that. That being said, I've often wondered if he's trying to steer the conversation about Victor to Charlie to get off that trail. Like I said, it's very complicated. But aside from that, do I think that Victor Marx knows something, has involvement, information? Yes, absolutely. Regardless of whatever Corby is saying, I came to that conclusion all on my own.
Do you think Victor's wife does?
Oh yeah.
And you
if you want to know the truth, I think that Eileen Marx is really a mastermind. Victor is not highly intelligent. He's charming. He's charming. He's charismatic, and he's funny, but he's not very smart. He's not an intellectual man. I don't know if at one point in time, before his unfortunate brain disorders took over, if he ever was. I don't know that. I don't know if just through unfortunate aging, unfortunate through aging, he may have lost some of his cognitive abilities, and he was highly intelligent at one point. I don't know. I don't know what I don't know, but I do know he is not highly intelligent. I know this firsthand, and I can say this with absolute confidence. He is not a smart man. He is not funny. He's funny, charismatic, and witty as hell, but he's not highly intelligent. Eileen, however, she's pretty savvy.
Is she also charismatic? What is she like? Have you met her?
Yeah, several times. Is she charismatic? So you kind of got to isolate her from Victor because he is such a large persona. Is she
It kind of
charismatic?
takes up all the air in the room.
Yeah, he takes up all the air in the room, right? So you have to,
Mhm.
so for me to answer that question, I have to take him out of the room. And
Mhm.
what would I think of her singularly if she were not married? I know I wouldn't say charismatic. I would say, gosh, I don't even know what the word I would use. I wouldn't say charismatic or witty or savvy. I mean, calculated.
Hmm.
She presents herself very calculated. She's a very calculated woman. And so I think that's the word I would use.
Do you think Erica Kirk had anything to do with it,
Absolutely.
in your opinion?
Like 100%. Like there's not, yeah, absolutely 100%.
From beginning to end, or what
Where
part?
where does beginning start? And where is
Planning.
it? And
Planning, execution, cover up.
Planning, execution, cover up? Yes.
All three?
Yes, absolutely.
And how about the people at Turning Point USA, others in Turning Point USA? What is your opinion about them? The ones that you think would be involved in those three aspects.
So the reason I'm going to say yes to all three of those things, and maybe because, you know, plans of action, you know, everyone may have a different role, right? And then until it all comes together and you're like, okay, you're doing this and you're doing this and you're doing this. So your role is that. So did all of those people from have planning, execution, were they all, no, I can't confidently say that. But what I can confidently say is there's part of me that wonders if they think, and the reason they did this and can live with themselves is under the premise of the greater good. And so the reason there's not like this, you know, whatever is under the premise of the greater good. And the greater good is, and so what's the question? What is the greater good? And I mean, I think because of how we are seeing what happened not long after this, this Iran, because I am, we went in and bombed a nuclear reactor in June. Woohoo! Great, that's awesome. And now we're back at it because they built another one. I'm like, I am not a nuclear person. I'm not science oriented, but I do have enough common sense to go, I think building a nuclear reactor might take a little while. And now we're going to a war with them because of this. And I'm like, no, I don't buy it. So is that the greater good? Because I have talked to people who are intricately, I have people who were one of the first hands on the Epstein files, and they believe wholeheartedly this has Israel backing, nefarious, bad, all bad. However, how it was presented to me was, yes, but you have to understand that the reason they're going after Israel is so important is because if Israel collapses in the Middle East and they collapse and they take over, we're going to have, a diabolical problem with the Middle East. I'm like, okay, sure, that makes sense to me, I guess. But I am also a big believer in America being a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
And what we do is for America first. And so greater good, right?
Yeah. Wow. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would have wanted me to ask?
No, I mean, it's a very difficult thing, kind of like the spider web thing we talked about. Like we could probably have talked 30 minutes about the orphanages in Haiti and what a corrupt, terrible, horrible thing that whole market is, and how it can easily be linked to, Epstein. It's like, it's just, it becomes, there's, I will research something to the point to where I start to actually, like, physically, I can't anymore, because it's so dark. And I have to stop. And I am nothing but a mere mortal who has my own little marketing business and a whole business that I have to run, and customers who are reliant on me that have absolutely nothing to do with politics or any of this. And sometimes I wonder why I have been, I don't want to say chosen, because that sounds, I have such a hard time believing that I'm chosen, but I do wonder how I found myself here.
Yeah. Will you pick up the reporting again with regard to Victor Marx, Corby Hall, two of them, Charlie Kirk?
Oh yeah, I've got a piece right now in regards to kind of, when Victor did the Piers Morgan thing. I'm always constantly processing, like, I can see exactly the opening line. I can see what my title's going to be, and because of the Corby thing, for sure.
So when can we expect to read that?
I make no promises. I operate very much, fortunately, because no one's paying me, I have no deadlines. But I always try and get things done within it, because I have lost windows, right? Like, there's something I would like to really report, but I don't get it done, and the window's already closed, and some new travesty has already happened. And so to go back to this one would really be pointless, because we've already moved on to the next Victor Marx diabolical, crazy thing. Yeah, so.
Oh, there's no shortage of content.
It writes itself. I mean, one of the newest things I wanted to write, and I was going to write it, was about who he chose for lieutenant governor, because that starts to get really suspect and intricate and dark money, and but then Corby sends me the, blah, blah, blah. And now I'm like, oh, well, like I said, it writes itself.
Yeah.
And this is actually more, I think, pertinent than the really strange choice for lieutenant governor.
Yeah. I want to catch that interview. Let's see. Is it all right if we take some questions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Phoenix, you go ahead. You choose what the questions are. I don't pay attention when I'm talking. I'm just with my guest, so I don't see a whole lot. I see what you put on the screen. I was better at that today. But yeah, is there any questions? Who has questions, and was there anything you wanted to put up there, Phoenix? Open up to questions. Somebody said, are they back together? Somebody had asked if Corby and his wife are back together.
The answer to that is no. Their divorce became final late May, early June. And I always found it interesting how he referred to her as his wife, when they were very much in the very deep throes of a divorce, and she had absolutely no intention whatsoever to reconcile. No, I'm not related to Victor. Right, the Cori Kennedy, I get that a lot.
Oh yeah,
because of the Kennedy. No, those are Mississippi and Louisiana Kennedys. I married into Kansas Kennedys, and very devout Kansas, very gigantic Catholic Kansas Kennedys, and his is the Louisiana, Mississippi Cajun Kennedys.
Yeah. So has this, I just thought of this question. How has this changed your faith? Because I know when you first started, and Charlie Kirk, you're a baby, like you said, a baby Christian. How has this impacted your faith?
Gosh, I actually start kind of getting choked up at that. I'm more faith-based now than ever, simply because I know, and I don't know like how I can talk to not sound like a crazy person, but I know my messaging. And as long as I follow it, I'm given messages. I don't know if everyone else is either. People tell me they are, but these are not things. You're talking about 58 years on earth, and I'm now finally tapping into this. And so I have messaging. It's very loud. It's very pronounced. Sometimes I get something that's like, I don't know what to make of that one, but no, I am being guided. And no, I am very strong in my faith.
Personal revelations.
Yeah, yes. I do have to say something that is a little bit of a wacky. I do want to say something about faith is prior to Charlie Kirk, so right around June or July of last year, I actually, because I was so starting down this journey of faith, I was also very, very much interested in the Jewish faith. I was very much interested in it. And I even had and some people thought I was cuckoo, but I felt okay about it. I had a necklace that I had purchased from Tiffany's, and it was a Star of David. And so I had both my Christian cross and the Star of David, and I wore that. And I've got pictures of me, and because I was like, I want to be all encompassing. I want to be open to all faith. And we all know, here's the Jewish faith. So we were getting in our hot tub, and I was taking off my necklaces, and I took off this necklace to put it on our bar, and I took off the Star of David, and it slipped out of my hands and it fell onto the deck. And I went to grab it. And the deck sucked up my Star of David. And I was like, and Kurt saw it too. And he was like, what the hell? I'm like, right? Okay. No joke. Within a couple of weeks, within a few days of that, I want to say not even a couple of weeks, everything started coming out about the Epstein files and Ghislaine Maxwell. And I was like, and of course, all of this, I know it sounds kooky. I know it does. If somebody told me that, I'd be like, whatever. But because I experienced it, I was like, what is this messaging? And Kurt was like, I can go down below and get the dry below off and get it. And I'm like, let's just leave it in there. And so my Star of David is still out there in our deck, or maybe it's washed into the gutter. I don't know. But I know it's crazy, and I know how that sounds. I know how it sounds. And if somebody said it to me, I'd be like, oh, that's all purely coincidental. But there's been a whole lot of coincidences.
What was the messaging? What was the messaging that you felt the personal message was to you?
Watch out for Israel.
Okay.
For the journey you're on, Cori, you need to watch out for Israel. The journey you're on.
Yeah. So
that was what it screamed to me.
If somebody goes back and digs up pictures of you, which they may, with the Star of David and a cross, you're not Jewish.
No, I'm not Jewish. No, just so you know,
you're not Israel.
No, I'm not Israel. I'm not Jewish. But here's the thing: I always was very, very, very intrigued by the Jewish faith because it's such a tribal thing, right? It's a religion and a culture, right? It's the only thing, and so it's very drawing to me. And I think that probably comes from my background. I don't have a strong background. I do not have a strong family base. I do not have those things that go with, say, strong Catholics or with the Jewish faith. And so I was very drawn to that. I was very drawn to those tribal things that keep people together. You may not like each other, but you're in it together. And I never had that. And I wanted that so much. And so I was always very, very, very intrigued with the Jewish faith. And so, but no, I'm not Jewish. There was a long period of time I wished I was. It's just so you know, because it just seems like so cool. Yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but like I said,
there's some neat things about it, I think. So is there a timeline where you ever change your mind and back Victor Marx, support back Victor Marx?
No. I no. And people, yeah, and just so you know, the argument now is we have to get behind the candidate. And I'm like, no, we don't. I don't know what world in any way, politics exist for the people. People do not exist for politics. And
Right.
Parties are for people. People are, it's like, there's just no, absolutely no.
What if it was the worst of the worst Democrat you could ever imagine having to make a choice between Victor and that person?
I just wouldn't vote. I just wouldn't vote
That makes
at
sense.
that point. I just wouldn't vote.
I'm not a fan of voting for the lesser of two evils, because the lesser of two evils is still evil,
The lesser of two evils
and
is
I
still
won't
evil.
partake. Yeah.
So the crazy thing about that, Teresa, is I started to kind of research Phil Weiser, and I'm like, and I stopped because I'm not 100% sure that he is worse than Victor. Like I can't, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go down that path because I'm not 100% sure that Phil Weiser is actually worse than Victor. Like Victor Marx might actually be worse than Phil Weiser, as crazy as that sounds. And it's like, yeah, if I were to write an article in the next 30 minutes, the title would be Moral Quagmire, because I feel like that's just what I keep running into.
Did you ever contribute to Victor's campaign financially?
Yes, we did.
Yeah. And would you do that again? I know, I'm just asking because I need to ask.
No, and there were plenty of our friends who did too. So I have that. I have that cross to bear.
Yeah.
No.
So one of the things that I loved most, and I'm going to read it again, I did last night during the stream, but I love this part, and I feel like so appropriate, especially now as we are picking up the mantle of research and investigative journalism, and so many of us have an opportunity to speak, even if you're not in front of a camera or behind a mic. But I want to read this, and this is part of Cori's death. I want to get the title correct.
The Death of Truth.
The Death of Truth. Okay. So the old gatekeepers no longer fully control investigative narratives. Increasingly, citizen journalists, podcasters, independent researchers, coders, archivists, and alternative media figures are performing the kind of deep dive investigative work legacy outlets once prided themselves on. The reality is both exciting and dangerous. Exciting because truth no longer depends entirely on institutional permission. Dangerous because independent media carries an enormous responsibility to remain disciplined, factual, evidence-driven, and resistant to emotional tribalism. Truth-seeking is messy, and friends are few.
Yes. And I remember writing that because that was when the next day, and Victor came out and said, Cori Kennedy, and my phone is ringing off the hook. The text messages I received, the hateful text messages I received, I was like, I have no friends in this. And I thought I did. So I just said, there was an acceptance. I have no friends in this.
Yeah. It can make you feel that way. And then as soon as you speak some other opinion or some other fact, or you evolve because you've learned more information, it's people turn.
Yeah.
So.
And I will say the confirmation bias is strong, and that's like, that's what I felt very much. I wouldn't say I felt alone. And like I said, as a baby Christian, it's so hard for me to say these words, because I don't know how it sounds, but I'm not alone ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you being so open with us and vulnerable. You shared, feelings and thoughts, and that it's not easy. It's not easy to come and to speak up, and it's not easy to pour your heart and open up your mind and be able to share. So I really appreciate you being here, and I appreciate
your platform.
you. What's that?
I appreciate your platform in doing that.
Yeah. Thank you. It's
Thank you.
I take it seriously. Like you said, it's an important thing, and we won't always get it right. We're human, so we do the best we can do. The best we can do at any point in time is the best we can do. So we learn and we live and we go on from there. So I want to thank you, audience, for being here. I do have a core group of people, and they're here in my mod. Thank you, Phoenix, for being here. And if you do have questions, you can always email Teresa Betterlife at teresabetterlife@gmail.com. There we go. And you can go follow Cori on X. And what is your handle on Facebook?
Cori Kennedy. I'm not. Yeah, it's just Cori Kennedy. And then the handle on X is at Mrs. Cori Kennedy.
Is there any parting thoughts or anything that you want to share? Advice? Anything you want to say as we close out?
If there's only any advice I have to say is don't give up, even though the truth seems so hard to find and to get out. That I would say is probably my biggest battle, is getting the word out. And just don't never give up on getting the truth out. Never give up on getting the truth out.
Yeah. Good. That's good. Okay, well, hang out here. I'll hit end this stream. Phoenix, I'll hit end this stream, and then I'll just chat with you after we end that, and we'll just say goodbye here offline.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay. Bye, everybody. I will see you soon. I think I'm popping on, as far as I know, onto Elizabeth's channel at 8 p.m. Central. I think that's my time. So anyways, go ahead and check that out and share, speak the truth, and stand strong. And I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.
This is a better life, from scars to stars, from pain to bulletproof. Teresa, better life, a better life with you. Talking news, pop culture life, love and scandal, heart to the heart. Teresa, better life. Real is where the reset starts. No playing small. We rise, we fall. We laugh, we do it all. A better life is one brave call. Teresa, better life. Let's build a better life. Let's build a better life. A better life. Teresa, better life.